And I think, let me do two more things. I think, Alan, maybe you can start talking about the agenda today. So let's do it like this way. So we have the kind of technology and product kind of updates, and we can let Elon to go through some of the highlights. And then we will go through the business side. You and I can cover the business side, and then we can take questions from the Zoom webinar as well as from the YouTube. So let's do that way. So maybe you and Elon can get started, and I'll try to post information on more social channels so people knows where to join us. Please.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I can go ahead and start. At least on the business side, there's a couple different things that I think would be kind of interesting to talk about a little bit more. Of course, I'm going to start out with the GSMA news because that's more in my wheelhouse here, and I'll save the really good stuff for Bruce with Aichi a little bit later. But starting out with GSMA, so as many of you know, or hopefully you've actually seen, we were able to publish an article on the GSMA recently, as of March, that we've actually been working on for a little while. So for those that aren't familiar with GSMA, they're actually the kind of standardized body that brings together a lot of the mobile network operators in the world. In fact, one of the largest telecom events every year is Mobile World Congress that happens in Barcelona. And so we actually been working with them for about 4 or 5 months, kind of talking to them about some of the different case studies and different things we've been working with telecom providers. And as you probably know, we also allude to that in many of these AMAs that we've done over the past couple of years. But this one in particular was really interesting. And so, we worked collaboratively with GSMA to actually get this case study together, specifically about how we were working with China Mobile. So as you know, we announced that we have a partnership with China Mobile. Specifically, what we've been doing is actually running NKN nodes on China Mobile's Edge Cloud network. And what the case study was really about was really kind of focusing on how NKN together with Edge Cloud provides a really good platform to actually provide content delivery for some of the largest service providers in the world, one of which is Aichi. And so what we were able to do is actually kind of not only are we serving content there, but we were actually to share some of the insights that we had gathered from actually using our platform to do that. There's actually 3 different areas that we thought were really compelling for mobile operators on how our network actually helps provide those kind of services. One of which is the backhaul. So, by actually being able to cache data like most CDNs do, we were able to show that, especially for popular content, that we can actually help alleviate a lot of the congestion on the backhaul. So if you think about how content delivery works, you're able to cache data once and actually serve it to multiple providers, especially if it's popular content. That may not be the case if it's like on the long tail, if they're videos that not a lot of people are watching. It could be more of a one-to-one type of thing. So that's one of the areas. On energy side too, because we were, we definitely showed that, there are potential energy improvements too as we move away from larger data centers and moving services like content delivery to more of the edge and more distributed with lower power kind of servers in other locations. There's also power improvements with that as well. And also from the customer experience perspective. So being able to cache content at the edge, using NKN, along with running on these edge servers, we could really show how customers really expect when you're watching a video that you can serve that content really quickly. When you click on that link, you expect within seconds that video is going to start. And so that's actually something you can do with our network. And actually that is probably one of the biggest things to come out of this kind of pandemic is the fact that a lot more people are watching a lot more streaming content out there, and so NKN together with Edge Cloud, China Mobile's Edge Cloud, is really helping to do that. So that's really the crux of the case study. And actually, from this, I'll actually drop the case study link in the chat here, so people can actually follow up on that as well. So I think it's a really good read, but also it just shows not only that we're working with mobile operators, but also kind of the reliability and the performance that you can get out of NKN's infrastructure. But I also want to wait and share with you also some of the iQII information as well. So Bruce, did you want to talk a little bit more about the iQII collaboration?
Yes, of course. Okay. So I was just typing with replying to some responses. So the iQII actually, it's a contract. So I think that the PR make it a little bit kind of sounds like just a general partnership. Actually, it's not. So it's a commercial contract. So we work very hard on it. So I think we have been talking about working with a large video content provider, I think since late summer or like autumn last year. So during that time, we did lots of technical testing and proof of concepts and commercial trial. So that took almost like 4 months or 5 months. And then after this very rigorous testing, and eventually we were able to sign the contract, which is actually less than 2 weeks ago, a little bit over a week ago. So it's a great achievement. The reason is, so we are actually supply the CDN solution to the iQII. So we are going to run the CDN software and carry their real video content delivery service for them. So that's a big win, because I think I don't see how many kind of other blockchain projects actually can have a real credible large customer, not on the proof of concept level, not on the trial level, not on the kind of fluffy partnership point of view, as a supplier, as a technology and solution supplier, actually get revenue from it. So that's, I think it's a big deal. So that's the reason why I think CoinDesk, which is, I would say, the most authoritative kind of news organization in the crypto space, reported this news because they think it's worthwhile and this is significant. And the whole team is very proud of this achievement. So I think on the business side, we talked about the iQII, we talked about the GSMA, and we also talk about the China Mobile. So I think maybe we can kind of shift a little bit to the technology and product side. So I think Yiren can give us a quick rundown of some of the items. I think people are interested about how the security audit has been working, and are there any new features or enhancement to the mainnet? And so that's kind of like a more on the mainnet side. And on the product side, how the CDN solution is going, how is the N Mobile is doing? Do we have iOS version soon? And how is the other products like a Data Ride and PubSub and Tuna? So Yiren, can you give us kind of high level overview since our last chat, I think it's February, how things have progressed?
Yeah, sure. So let's check it one by one. So probably we can first talk about NCDN, since it's related to iQII, which is most people cares about. So I think from the technical perspective, the iQII's contract is very important for us, because it kind of on the tech side help us to verify that our system, our like deployment, our technical side is robust enough to be able to serve like realistic content to like in production, not just in our like test environment or in our like for our own purpose. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that it actually provides a new like technical possibility that we can replicate with other vendors, so that we can not only provide do the same thing with iQII, but also do it with other like companies if there is a need. So I think that's the importance on the tech side. And the most important thing is that it should be a scalable such that we can basically copy and just do it on other contract. So that's the NCDN part. And also for the security audit part, I think that a lot of people have been asking about it, and it's going really well. So the security audit company, they have finished auditing our core module, including consensus, peer-to-peer network, ledger, blockchain, all those kind of important parts. And as probably you can see in our PR, we have fixed quite a lot of issues discovered during the security audit. They are doing a really good job. They spent quite a long time trying to understand how our consensus work, how our peer-to-peer network works, and trying to identify potential issues. And they have identified quite a few very high quality ones. So basically around half of them has been merged into the current version, and around half of them is still pending, and we will merge them after we have tested and reviewed the PR thoroughly. And it's pretty close. So we should be able to finish all these core module audits in probably like 1 or 2 weeks. Other than that, we might still need to audit a few like less important part like RPC, like the NKND and NKNC binary or something like that. But yeah, still since the core module is done, we are expected to see it done pretty soon. Yeah, definitely in this quarter. So that's for the security audit part. Is going quite smooth, and we're satisfied with it. And for the let's see, for the PubSub, right? For the PubSub, I think we have got quite a few high quality community developers recently. Probably you have find the discussion either on DChat or in Discord. So people are trying to build some realistic thing on top of NKN, including including a very interesting application that is trying to help people like fight against this virus thing. It's also on the SDK side, we have been publishing our new version of the SDK pretty recently. So for example, the Go version of SDK now has a full documentation and like new API that should be able to use on both native Go and also Android and mobiles using Go Mobile. And we have been using it in our own mobile application. And also for the JavaScript side, we have been releasing the new NKN SDK JS as like replacement for the old NKN SDK, NKN client JS and NKN.ORG JS. It is using like WebAssembly to achieve almost native performance. So it's almost as fast as the Go SDK now. You can like send and receive tens of almost like 10,000 message per second in the browser. So that is pretty impressive, and we have been using like testing it in DChat, and it's working well so far. So that's for the SDK side, and also for the mobile side. Yeah, we have got a lot of questions about when can we get iOS version. So yeah, that's from the tech. Well, underneath we are trying to rewrite the application using Flutter, and we have got a iOS version that using Flutter that has got most of the functions like the basic wallet, like private chat, and the basic like public group chat. And we just need to add some like, let's say, the private group chat and a few more details. Well, that may take some time because the devil's in the details before we can like officially publish it, if the app will allow us to do it very smoothly. Yeah, but we will try to figure it out. But yeah, it's going smoothly, and we have a version that we are using every day for sending messages and internal discussion and communication. And yeah, it's going pretty smooth, and it's probably so far the most important, most secure like IAM application that I've ever known, because it basically uses the local locally it encrypts your database, and there's no third party that manage your private key, and it's pure end-to-end encrypted messaging. So it's it's very secure, and basically as secure as you can imagine. That's the mobile app part. Am I missing anything new?
Yeah, I think I just want to add one more to the N mobile. So I think from the feedback we have is even though we have lots of community members need a wallet function, so right now the N mobile, the wallet function is like the front and center, and with some DChat as well. So I think for more general public, I think we will eventually move the DChat as the front and center of the kind of the application. And also, like what Elon said, the security, the privacy part with the kind of main differentiator. And the wallet function will still be there, but it will be more in the backend kind of, because for lots of the non-crypto people, if they look at the first step is to create a wallet and they get a little bit scared. So the adoption is a little bit challenging there. So we will still have a very secure wallet function, but we will make it even more like a normal consumer application with a very strong kind of secure messaging as the main functionality, and very kind of simplify the UI and onboarding process for the general public. Then I think we'll have bigger uptake and make it as popular a consumer application as we can. I do know that there are people who really appreciate privacy and security. So encrypted messaging, I think it's very important. And actually recently we wrote a blog about it, comparing different types of encrypted messaging application. It's on our blog.nkn.org, and you are welcome to check it out as well. So back to Elon, let me think. So how about, did we cover tuna or the data right side?
Yes, we have covered data right side. Yes, for the tuna side, well, yeah, if you're, so yeah, tuna side is also have some progress. So we have added some new features into tuna, like for example, selecting service node based on the geo IP instead of just pure random. And also we have added the payment functions for the reverse tuna. So I think it's almost feature complete as a first version. I wouldn't say as an end version, but as probably the first public version. So we should be able to use it publicly pretty soon. Yeah, and we internally have been using it all the time for probably like almost half a year for both like proxy and also as a reverse proxy, and it's working pretty well so far. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So I think we have more or less covered kind of the overview of the business side and with the technology side. So I think, Alan, did you have you been checking the questions on the social, and also let everybody know that on the webinar at the bottom there's a Q&A functionality, so you can ask questions and get answer. Of course, you can still do it in the chat, but I think Q&A is actually more convenient because you will know your questions in the queue and eventually we can answer it and stuff like that. And also on the YouTube channel, I think Alan will monitor if there's any questions there as well.
Yeah, right now, I'm trying to enable the chat on the live stream. So that's the reason why we don't have any questions yet on the live stream, because for some reason it's not enabling quite right.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Let's see if we have anything on the Zoom so far in terms of questions. Right. We don't have any questions on the Zoom yet. So if anyone has questions specifically on Zoom, we would be happy to go over those now.
Yeah. Okay. So the one question on the Q&A is from Christy and from NKN.ORG. So our old friend from NKN.ORG. So the question is, are there some progress in trading mainland tokens on exchanges? So the question is, so the answer is not yet. The reason is, like Elon mentioned, so we took this security audit very, very seriously. So, and also we believe we pick one of the most competent security audit companies, not only, so I think there are two types of security audit, right? So one type, it's like, okay, I need to go to exchange. So let's pick one of the security companies that this exchange approves. And then I pay a certain amount of money. Then in 1 month or 2 months, they print out a report, say everything's fine, and go for it. So that's one type of the security. And the other type of security is we actually take the time and go through all the source code and really find deeper problems, not like a simple ones. And we don't give a time limit, say, okay, you have to give us kind of a green okay, and we pay you, and then we can go to the exchange. So we didn't take that kind of route. So that's when it took longer. And also it's very interactive. So whenever they find problems, like Elon and the team will fix it. So we actually prefer this way because I think at the end of the day, it's safer for our community, it's safer for exchange, and safer for everybody. So that's the reason it took us a little bit longer time. But like Elon said, it's been doing very well. I think the majority of the code has been audited, and all the security flaws, they have been fixed in all the kind of pull requests in the GitHub. So you can check online. But I think we still want to check a few other things like peripheral code, like an SDK, the RPC calls, and etc. That might take a little bit more time, but eventually, once all the security audit is done, we'll go to Exchange and then start the mainnet integration. So we will get there, and I think we are getting very close to that because the main code base has been audited and the security bugs have been fixed. So the next question is also on the Zoom. So it's actually so Tom, thank you for forwarding this question from Telegram by Ispasi. So the question is, number one, tell us some more about the commercial client software. Is it a partially closed source? Will to use the NKN tokens as the open source one? And can everyone run those commercial client software? I mean, nodes for those later on, or are there basic requirements, or is that related to tuna? So I think Elon, you probably know what is the NKN commercial, right? So
yeah, sure.
You can answer. Yeah.
So yeah, for the first one, yes, it is partially closed source because some of the software or service we run might be like commercial software that might not want to be open source, of course. So the application can be open source only if, let's say, all of its subcomponents wants to be open source, right? But really, it's pretty simple. The commercial one is just even though it's not open source, it's basically just fetching a list of services like the NKN main node or the tuna NCDN, or let's say the IG's ones that service that are available, and start it and try to keep it running. If it exits, then restart it. And basically that's it. Pretty simple, nothing fancy. And for the second one, we use NKN tokens as open source one. Well, yes, the NKN. So I would say I'm not sure if I understand it correctly, but based on my understanding, what you're asking is that is this running the like open source NKN as like kind of the default service or something like that? If that's a question, then yes, it is. So the default service it's fetching, including, let's say, the NKN, the current NKN node, mining node, and the tuna, and yeah, that's the current. That's the only default one currently, and both of them are the same as the open source one currently. So basically, by running the NKN commercial, you can think of it as running a NKN node with auto-update features and providing tuna service with auto-update features, and then probably run other third-party service with auto-update features like the IG's one. That's basically it. And for the third question, can everyone run the commercial client software? Yes, anyone can run it. Yeah, you can just download it and run it on your home computer or like on the VPS or wherever you want. And nodes for those data or yeah, the basic requirement. I would say it's the same as the NKN main node, the mainnet node. It's pretty low. Basically, any computer you can find can actually run it as long as it can compile and run like Go programs. Yeah, that's basically any computer.
Yeah, because I want to add one more. Yeah, so I think the NKN commercial, even it says like a commercial, but actually I would say majority of the code is open source, right? So so I think the NKN.D or the NKN node software, it's exactly the same as the open source one. And there is a tuner. The tuner itself is open source. Of course, there are some parameters and some kind of convenience features that might be closed source. And then you have the NCDN. The NCDN is closed source because of some of the security requirements to run that NCDN. And then the IGE or some other kind of third-party software that we do not have source code, right? So if you look at that, it's just a superset of the NKN node software.
Tuner will be purely open source. So basically, currently only the IG is one, and NCDN might be like open, not open source.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is still forwarded by Tom, but actually from the IPSI from Telegram. So how much percentage does NKN charge from the payment of the client to keep the business running? So I think the core is really to how can we enable a larger ecosystem, right? So if we want to be successful, then we have to have a very healthy mining ecosystem. So we cannot be like, let's say, a traditional centralized system that whoever owns the platform kind of get the lion's share of the profit. That will not work in this kind of open platform. So what we try to do is really the vast majority of the revenue we get from the paying customers like IG or other CDN customers will go back to the miners, and also we will keep a very small percentage. I don't have a fixed number. Let's say 10% or something like in that ballpark, right? I don't know the exact range. How can we enable the R&D or the research and development on the kind of the additional technical support and features for IT and other customers? But I would say vast majority back to the miner. The second part is right now, I think we receive the fiat or US dollars or RMB from the commercial client customers. So, and then we'll use that word to convert into tokens and then use the tokens to pay for the miners. So miners has to paid by tokens. So that will also improve the velocity of the token. So there'll be more movements of the tokens, and that will hopefully be healthy to the ecosystem, token ecosystem as well.
And for the tuna, if you're asking about tuna, so for tuna, it's we don't take a byte here. It's purely from the it's purely a nano payment from the service user to the service provider. We are just providing the software and the platform. But of course, we will also provide some node that run as a service provider. But yeah, conceptually, it's a purely P2P model. It's not through NKN, unlike like IG or NCDN, where we are kind of the middleman. So Tuna is purely decentralized and peer-to-peer.
Yeah, I think this is actually important to stress, right? So the tuna is actually, NKN is not really involved in terms of the money changing hand or the token changing hand. So the fundamental design goal for tuna is really to make it like Amazon marketplace. So the seller of the bandwidth and the buyer of the bandwidth, actually they create this kind of we call nano payment channel. So they can agree on the pricing and the service quality or service type. And then they actually, like for example, if Tom, you provide a web acceleration or proxy service, and Chris will use it using the tuna service, then actually the transaction entirely between Tom and Chris, right? So NKN is not involved. So if Chris pay 1 million NKN token to Tom for this service, Tom get 1 million NKN tokens. So nobody else in the middle will get a cent of it, right? So that's kind of the thing will be the model going forward for this kind of tuna type of service. So like Elon said, the buyer and seller will connect directly to each other, and NKN will not be in the middle. So let's switch a bit. Let's go to the chat, and there is a Cyrus Strafford have a question. So when do you guys go live with Baidu? Will Baidu been doing a joint press release with you. So Baidu is actually not involved. The reason is, if you look at the CoinDesk article, so what we have signed the contract is with iQIYI. So Baidu is like one of the kind of stakeholders, like equity owners. It's like, for example, if Google Ventures or Andreessen Horowitz invested in Uber, then whoever signed the contract with Uber did not really automatically have a contract with Google Ventures or Andreessen Horowitz. So they are different. So that's the reason our commercial relationship is entirely with iQIYI, the video streaming platform. So in order to release that press and to break the news, we actually have to go through the PR review, the marketing review with iQIYI. So typically for a big company, they don't want to do a joint press release, but everything we write and everything we publish is approved by the iQIYI PR department. So they approve what we have read, they did modifications to it, and what you see today on our published articles are what they have approved. So that's what we can say, but we don't have any commercial relationship with Baidu, at least not now. So the next question is from the Q&A on webinar. So just quick pause. So Alan, did you have the YouTube streaming Q&A enabled?
No. So right now it's grayed out for me to do that. I might actually have to change some settings in both the Zoom to relaunch it, which might actually have a different YouTube link. So I think at this point, I think we should just keep it, and we'll just take the questions from the Zoom itself. So if you do have questions there, we'll try to take them from there. And also, if you have questions and you're on YouTube, we'll also try to monitor some of our channels, including Telegram, exactly.
Yeah, you can always use Telegram. So I think we have some good people like Tom who access both Telegram and also Zoom webinar. So he can be the messenger for us. Thanks, Tom, for doing that. So the next question is, again, is from Tom himself. So do you have a time scale for when iQIYI content will actually be moved through the network? And will it mostly be making use of a China Mobile Edge node? So two questions, right? So iQIYI content is flowing through our network already since last year. So when they do trials and proof of concept, we always run real traffic. So there's no fake traffic to run. Of course, now it's a very small scale. So since we have signed the contract about a week ago, so now we are ramping up the capacity to meet their demand. But I think it's very localized, right? So for at least for the first phase, it will be China only. So the reason is like this. If we provide the iQIYI service from outside of China, the performance will be quite poor, because I think there are two reasons, right? So first of all, we do have these geographical and the gateways and firewalls in between any international sites, servers and the China internet. But secondly, also just geographical proximity, right? So you're just too far away, too many hops away from the people who are consuming the video. So for the iQIYI CDN node, they will be all in China. And so the traffic is already flowing at a much lower volume. But I think we intend to ramp up quickly in May, and then also to a much higher level in August. So we have a few key milestones we need to hit. And so the contract with iQIYI has stipulations. So we need to provide a minimum amount of bandwidth at a certain date. So we definitely will meet that, but we can also beat that, right? So there's no upper cap. So if we can get more capacity than the minimum, so however much we can provide, they will pay for it. Because I think the reality in China is the video streaming market is so kind of high in demand. So however much bandwidth we can come up with, they can actually eat it and pay for it. So that's a good news. So we don't have any limit on the upside. So it's all up to our execution in China. How can we recruit the nodes? How can we pay out the people fairly and incentivize more miners to run in China and help provide the service to iQIYI? So that's the question. About China Mobile, so I think it's a combination. So we will use China Mobile Edge nodes in certain areas where there's less coverage by the community. and when there are community nodes, we'll use the community nodes. At the end of the day, we would prefer the large percent or like a majority of the provider will be from the community, because I think NKN is a decentralized project. So if we buy out all the, I mean, China Mobile resource or China Telecom resource, and then run the IIG service for them, then we are no different than any other CDN service, right? So we don't have a differentiation. So I think by actually crowdsourcing those resources, plus some portion run by the team to maintain certain level of quality in some area that's less covered community, I think it will be our differentiation or our winning point against the other more centralized solutions. So no, we will not be using only China Mobile, but we will use it where it's appropriate. Okay. So Alan, maybe we can switch to you to be the DJ, since we're not monitoring the YouTube anyway.
Yeah. So I've got a question here from our Telegram. This one here is, how is NKN different than Theta Network? When will we be seeing full integration of NKN to IG? Those are kind of two different questions. I guess the first one would be about Theta. The second part of that would be looking at integration of NKN with IG.
So I'll give the first question to Elon, and I'll answer the second.
Well, yeah. So for this one, I'm not sure. So first of all, yeah, we have a good relationship with Theta, but I'm not confident to say that I know the technical details of Theta. But based on my understanding, they are mostly working with the content, the video streaming, video live streaming, and the CDN rights. So and they kind of eat their own food by using their own CDN in their spacer.io. So Bruce, is that accurate description of what Theta is doing?
Yeah, I think the Theta is very focused on the they have two sister company, right? So they have the Sliver.tv, which is a little bit like a YouTube, but it's a token based and crowdsourced kind of content generation. For that, I think it's more like a YouTube, I would say. And then the Theta, the networking side, is really to how to distribute those content effectively for primarily for the Sliver.tv. So I think they have a more, I would say, very focused approach to kind of user-generated content and how do we incentivize the user-generating content, how to distribute it. So they have more consumer play in a way. For us, we are more on the infrastructure side. So we are very much focused on the networking verticals. So video delivery is kind of one natural one, an early fruit like the IGE, but also we do like a messaging, and we do file transfer, we do proxy and web acceleration. So other things that Theta might not want to get into, right? Because they are very focused on the video. Actually, the Theta CEO told me that they are entirely on live streaming. So they don't even touch like the long format, like for example, the Game of Thrones kind of streaming, which is actually a file, basically streaming a file. But they are very much like a Twitch. So I should say they are more like a Twitch or YouTube Live instead of YouTube. So yeah, that's my differentiation.
Yeah, basically we can say that so NKN is focusing on the network infrastructure. So it's providing a lot of things about network, like including like the PubSub, the data write, like the messaging, the file transfer, and CDN. So CDN is part of what the network infrastructure can do, but not all of it. And also specifically for the CDN, we are also providing like a generic CDN networks, not only for like the video content, but also basically if you have tried the NCDN, it's basically the same format as the Cloudflare, so any website can use it. So it's kind of the generic one, but not specific to like a video streaming one.
Yeah. So let's try to speed up the answer a little bit faster. I also start from myself and to shorten my answer because there are lots of questions piling up. So Alan, what's the second part of the question, please? Can you repeat?
Yeah. So when will we be seeing full integration of NKN to IG?
Yeah, I think the full integration is already happening. So we have done the commercial trial, so we know how to deploy it and how to do the accounting and payment. So now it's more about how can we connect their real bill and payment system, and how can we verify all the accounting is correct, and how can we deploy in a large scale. So it's more about how to ramp up and how to verify the system. So I think the payment cycle is a month. So I would say maybe a month to a month and a half from now on, we will go through the whole kind of payment cycle, and then we will know which part we need to be improvement and which part is fully functioning, and then we can push the button to speed up and ramp up more capacity. So let's continue.
Yeah, short answer is it's already done, but it's just about the scale. So it's going larger and larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I guess we could go back to our Q&A here. This one's again from Tom. We spoke about NKN's funding and how long the business is covered for previously, but now with Netnick and recent Aichi sign, can you comment on the company's cash flow and how things are processing commercially?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we want to separate these two parts, right? So the NKN.org, which is the open source, the long-term community, and that one will be paid for by the kind of the fund we raised by the token sale. And that one we have said quite a few times will last us 2 to 3 years if we don't increase the headcount, right? So that will be kind of independent. So because we want to make sure our mainnet and also the open source part will always be very vibrant and always to the highest quality, highest performance, right? We don't want to, because we have commercial attraction, then we don't do that. So that's the reason we actually, why we spend so much effort and money on the code, the security audit, right? So that's one part. And then on the commercial side, we are more have the kind of for-profit entity. So we quite often we say, okay, so NKN.org is the Linux foundation, and then NKN Inc. or Incorporated, it's the business side or the Red Hat version. So the revenues and the kind of profitability will be more on the for profit or the commercial entity, and that one have to live on its own, right? So that one is too early to tell. I think the good news is we have product market fit by signing the contract with Aichi, but the revenue is start to streaming in because we just signed it like a week and a half ago. So there's a billing cycle. So I don't think they will happen immediately, but the revenue will start to pick up during the second half of this year. And then we'll have a better projection in terms of the pipeline opportunity, the existing customer, and how does this whole thing look like. The good news by getting commercial revenue, so we can actually maybe spend more money to do some hiring more people to do the business development, hiring more people to do the technical support and development. So that's a good news. So we can actually use the money from the commercial side to actually improve the products and the offerings we have for the customers.
Okay. Here's another question. This one's back to ISPCI. I hope I pronounced that right. Do you have any other possible business deals in the making that you cannot talk about? Without saying much, could you estimate them in terms of small, medium, or large?
Is that from Telegram?
That was from Telegram, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think we are always working with many kind of customers. So let me give you a few concrete examples. So for the IG, because it's such a big deal, so we are like all hands on deck to get it working properly and scale to the level we want it to be. So so we are not approaching any other big video content owner like let's say TikTok, right? ByteDance. That would be ideal customer to go next once we get the IG scale up in a very substantial level, right? So so that's what we are doing on the kind of big video content side. But there's lots of other opportunities. For example, in the gaming industry, if you play some of the large games, so every week you have game feature packs and or updates, and not only the game itself being updated, but the content or the data for the game is changing all the time. So that's a huge opportunity. One of our BD colleagues in China is working with a gaming company to do that. And we have talked about the NAS or network attached storage, the home hard disk market. So we have already deployed in with one vendor. We're working on 3 larger vendors in that space. And the security camera, we're working with IoTex and a few other companies, but that's a little bit early. So I would say more in the pipeline, not in kind of concrete commercial side yet. Then in the US and in Europe, we are working with some large cable companies, and for a while actually. But as you can see, Aichi, like the bigger the customer, the longer it takes. Aichi, we started in summer last year, so it's about 9 months of sales cycle. So lots of the other prospects also we started last year, but it takes some time. And the good news is that we started early, so hopefully this year we'll see more fruits bearing.
Great. The next question is also from Espechi. This one's about IPv6. Maybe this one's more in Yilan's camp. It says, how about IPv6? So it's actually a pretty long, a long post here. So so how about IPv6 support for the nodes? Available IPv4 numbers are getting less and less. Google says for search requests around 30% IPv6, despite the question, was it a real request or just bots? Other CDN companies are offering IPv6 support. Do you see a need for it? And so what about the effort of implementation into the NKN ecosystem? Would IPv, so
yeah.
Well, why don't you start with that? Why don't you answer that one and then I'll.
Okay, so okay, so I thought you have, I thought that's an obvious question, so it seems longer than it is. So yeah, for technical, this is not a technical question because for from the technical perspective, I mean from the implementation's perspective, it's pretty easy, probably just less than a day or something. It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty trivial from the technical side, but it is really from the compatibility side because for example, let's say my node, if I offer an IPv6 address and I only publish my IPv6 address, then the rest of the node who only support IPv4 cannot connect to me because these are two incompatible protocol. That means I can only connect to those nodes who can connect to IPv6, which is still not a big percent now. So when would it be feasible to provide an IPv6 only address? I would say probably when, let's say, 90% of nodes or more, ideally, let's say 99% of the nodes in the network can connect it to an IPv6 only address, then it is feasible to provide to support IPv6 address as a public advertisement address for a node, because otherwise the network might get segmented. Yeah. So is that only half of the question?
That's like half of the question. It does go into some other questions here. You know, for the purposes of time, I think we only have about 10 minutes left. So let's curb this, but I'll try to write something offline for this if you would, and we'll go with some of these other questions here. This one's also from Espechi. Will NKN nodes ever be available on mobile?
Well, yeah, this is again not another question that seems technical, but actually not technical. But if you can see this, so yeah, it's not hard probably to make the NKN node run on mobile as we can use like Go Mobile to cross compile it. But the problem is really, so there are several issues if you try to do it. So first of all, the battery, well, your phone's battery will die really quickly, and the second of all is that your phone needs to keep the app running in foreground. That's it for iOS. For Android, it might be better, but still it's eating up battery crazily. And also the third issue is that typically your so the service provider will try to put one of the most strict like the firewall or NAT over your over your mobile network, and it makes it almost impossible for it to listen for incoming connections unless you run it at your home together with your computer, which a better solution is just to run it on your computer, right? So if it's on a mobile network, it's almost impossible to accept incoming connection due to the firewall added by the service provider. So it makes it not feasible to, well, not practical to do it because you won't earn anything.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. So the next question here is for Ken G. It says, I tried out NFTP NKN.org with a friend. It is awesome. Well, so thank you for that. I know Elon has put some great effort into putting that together. I can see an app called NDrop or something where you just leave it running on your home PC. And whenever you want to drop yourself a file from elsewhere, you just use NDrop. Will you see an online video game running purely on, oh, so that was the first part of it. So I think that was just a thanking us for that. But the second part of that question is, will we see an online video game running purely on NKN?
Yeah, for the first part, for NDrop, yeah, I think it will be possible and not hard to make, because we have the source code of the nftp.nkn.org is on GitHub. It's pretty simple. As long as you use our SDK, it's pretty easy. So same for NDrop, it'll be quite easy to just make application like that. It just need to make some nice UI or something. Yeah. So that's for NDrop. And the second part,
let me quickly add one. So we have been thinking about it. We just don't have resource to do it because our hands are all tight. So for example, just give a kind of quick example, like FileZilla is an open source kind of FTP or file transfer kind of. They have like a really smooth UI, good UI. So if somebody is enterprising enough and say, okay, let's replace the networking side with NKN, using some reference from the NFTP. I think, of course, if you use Go, you'll probably get a slightly better performance, because I think you already improved the JavaScript kind of SDK. I think that will be a perfect for community project, right? So I hope whoever is listening, if you have the time and the interest, and if you develop NDrop, I think lots of people will be happy to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also a hint from, well, I would say a suggestion from the tech perspective. Whenever possible, you can try to use a native SDK. But even if it's even if you want to use a JS one, it's still pretty good, because the speed is pretty decent. It's around half of the Go SDK one. And for the second part of the question is about, Alan, what's the second part of the question again? Oh, the game. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, the game.
Run
exactly.
the online video game purely over
it's the same as Bruce has mentioned. So actually, from 1.5 years ago, we have the Space Cat, right? It's a online real-time video shooting game on top of the NKN. But I think later on, it hasn't been updated or developed. But I think it's more like we kind of lack the resources to try to do everything, right? So we hope the community or other people who are interested can try to develop the real-time game on top of the NKN. We also did some demo, like the T-Rex Runner. It's also a multiplayer game extracted from the Chrome T-Rex Runner, and it's real-time, and the data is going through NKN, so it's purely decentralized. But yeah, it'll be happy for us to say that someone used the NKN SDK to try to develop something pretty interesting and meaningful, or like have a lot of users or something like that.
Yeah, I think you forgot to mention using Steam and the Moonlight to stream any action.
Right? But that's a game streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can use a Tuna to do like the remote gaming, right? The game can run remotely on like a high-end computer, and you can actually play it on your laptop remotely. That's kind of one of the use case of Tuna.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So this is another question here. This one comes from the Telegram. Will there be several NKN networks or only a single large one?
Well, I would say publicly only a single large one, but privately you can deploy as many as you want. Well, this is kind of the same as this is same answer for most public blockchain, like for Ethereum, IPFS, or like Bitcoin or something like that, right? There's only one big public one, but you can deploy the private one as you want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So getting back to our Q&A from the Zoom, this one is from Tom again. Hussein Moin's name was dropped very quickly last year with no other official name dropped since. Could you give us an update with regards to your business advisor team that was spoken of in 2019?
Yeah, I think it's up to, it depends on when is the appropriate time. So actually, in addition to Hossein, we also now have Ray, we have Michael, we have Yari. I cannot disclose their last name yet, but we actually now have 3 to 4 advisors. They are industry veterans that advising us on various issues, right? The main thing is really open doors to the customers in their particular domain. Could be a gaming, could be a CDN, could be video, could be SaaS, but also, for example, advising strategy and product management, roadmap, and etc. So more like a running as a standard traditional startup in a way for the commercial side. So I think it's up to the appropriate time, but we are doing well with the advisors, and quite a few industry veterans see the value in what we're doing, and they are very eager to help us to move forward. So Alan, there's also some question in the chat in the WebEx webinar.
Yeah. So we need to kind of take a look at that. Let me see. I'm going to start. Has NKN faced any difficulties with Chinese regulation due to the Chinese crackdown of cryptocurrencies?
I don't think so, because I think we don't promote the cryptocurrency. We don't promote NKN as a token so much in China. So our China team has been mostly kind of marketing our achievements in terms of technology development, as well as our commercial success, for example, with iQIYI, with NetNick, and with China Mobile, etc. So we haven't run into any problem with authority yet. Because I think at the end of the day, NKN.org is a Singapore foundation. And so our team in China and the US are software developers and running normal business. So at least I don't see there's a problem there. And I think the crackdown on cryptocurrency is more about are you using the cryptocurrency as a legal form of fundraising and the fraud, right? So that, I think, not only Chinese government, but also US government, the feds, and they all crack down, right? So if you did illegal fundraising and if you did a fraud, they will definitely chase you. But I think we've been very careful with our legal compliance. So we never sold any initial tokens to Chinese investors, individual investors, or US individual investors. So we have sold to the countries who allow, at least at that time, to sell tokens. And so I think we are pretty fine there.
Excellent. And I think we already talked about this. This was kind of more of our kind of what we were working with Theta. I think we sort of answered this question. Is there any synergies between yourselves and Theta that you guys could team up? The reason I ask is that with your clients like iQIYI and there's like Samsung, together you could become a very dominant force. I think we already kind of talked about the differences between Theta and NKN and that. But if you guys have anything else to add.
Yeah, we are actually very kind of good friends with the Theta founders, right? So their CEO, their CTO. So we actually discuss quite regularly over dinner or in meetings. So if we identify a specific kind of use case that both of us can bring our competence and make a better solution together, we definitely do it. So I don't think we're competing. So I think we have more collaboration opportunities, but it just all of us are busy with our kind of existing activities. So if we identify, we'll do it.
Excellent. I think that covers everything in the webinar chats, and I think our questions. The one thing I guess we could also just address was the second half of that IPv6 question with Elon, and then we can begin to wrap it up. Maybe kind of go around the room and say some last words. So this was again about IPv6. He said, would IPv6 mean a second NKN network for only IPv6? Because there won't be no direct connection to IPv4, or will there be some interconnect between nodes that support IPv4 and IPv6 to relay packages in between? I mean, IPv6 is way more simple regarding the possible number of nodes, is it or not? So let me stop there, and then there's one other part to that question.
Yeah. So first of all, so the IPv6, so there are two. Okay, there are two ways that an IPv6 node can talk to IPv4 node. So the first of all, the first possibility is that as a transition period, some of the nodes, well, for example, the computer I'm using has both IPv6 address and IPv4 address. This will likely to happen for a long period time, assigning an IPv6 address for every IPv4 address, right? It's because there are much more IPv6 address available. So I would say that's kind of a large type. A node can talk to both IPv6 and IPv4. So there will be no problem for a computer to connect to a remote node that is only have IPv6 address or only have an IPv4 address. That's one possibility. Another possibility that there could, I forgot the term, but basically the IPv6 address, since it has much higher address space, there is kind of an adapter or something like that that can map every IPv4 address to an IPv6 address. And there could be something that basically do the translation and relay for you. So basically you can think of it like I convert IPv4 address to IPv6 address so that IPv6 only node can talk to that IPv4 address. But the reverse it cannot be easily done because there are much more IPv6 address than IPv4 address. So this will be, I know some node is kind of using it, but it won't, I would say it probably makes more sense when IPv6 address has more market share, let's say, probably over 90% or so. So then it becomes a problem, a question for those IPv6 address to be compatible to those old IPv4 address. So basically, what I was trying to say that there are quite a few different ways for nodes to enter for IPv6 address node to talk to IPv4 address node, but the reverse might not be that easy. So in the future, I wouldn't say there will be like two separate network, but still be one. But it's more like it's still like the current internet, right? There are not two separate internet, IPv4 and IPv6. It's just everyone trying to be compatible with each other and try to find a solution that works with both in the same network.
Excellent.
So Alan,
Excellent.
let's take the last question from the Q&A and then we wrap up.
Yeah. I was going to suggest the same thing. So the one from the Q&A is NKN will one day be running Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, YouTube, and of course Google. That would be awesome. NKN is actual project with real world results and adoption. Why does the price not reflect the amazing progress you guys are making?
Okay, so I think this one is it's more rhetoric. So I think there's lots of things impacting the token price, and the market, overall market is probably the biggest one. The second one is that particular project, right? So I think even if everything kind of equal, some of the tokens, they have a very concentrated ownership. So NKN is not. So we have unlocked almost all the tokens. And if you look at our token distribution, it's very, very widely distributed. So there's no single or a few big players owning lots of tokens. Yes, the foundation, the team still have lots of tokens, but you can see from the wallet they are locked, and so nobody's moving them. And the NKN team does not participate in the speculation. So that's the reason you see some coins getting huge upwings and downwings because, well, first of all, maybe the market is reacting to it, or maybe there's some manipulation going on there, right? So we don't do that. So that's the reason what you see, the growth might be modest, but it's organic. So I think we like it better. But I think the organic growth, when you reach a certain tipping point, and then maybe we'll go to the kind of hockey stick. Hopefully that might happen, but it will take a while. Then artificially you want to do the up and downs. So that's my comment on the token pricing. I don't know who can actually predict. At least I cannot predict, and we definitely cannot control or manipulate or influence. What we can do is do our job well, and also, like Vitalik said, we need to do the tech work well and do marketing well, and then the rest is up to the market to decide. So that's what we say. Coinbase, yeah, we definitely will keep on trying. I don't think they are listing many new coins recently, and but I think it's one of the most reputable exchanges, and also enable us to access to large US investors and the large crypto funds globally. So we definitely keep on trying. It will take some time, but we'll keep on trying. So I think that's all. And then maybe I'll just quick one last few words. I think we had some kind of software problems with Zoom and YouTube. So I think Yambo was not able to join as a panelist. He was here earlier, but cannot talk because it was mute, probably because some new updates for Zoom. But he was here, and he wanted to say hi to everybody and to show that he's fully committed, 120% working on the project, and very proud of the team and what we have achieved, both in terms of technology and the business side. So that's kind of, and also I would say we are on a very good trajectory, because the signing of the IHE contract is really one significant step. And once we execute it well and make it a really shining reference customer, it will enable us to get many more customers, both in China and also globally. So I think we are on the right footing. And also, even though it's very difficult in the pandemics, but I think because we are working in the networking domain, which is actually the growing area during this pandemic, so people spend more time online and rely more on the remote learning, video streaming for collaboration, for learning, and for basically any communication. So I think the communication business is a high potential business. It's a growth business, even in the downturn. So that, I think, something is very good to know and hold on to that thought to leave to the audience. And thanks again for joining, and I hope you stay safe and healthy. And I think the world will be different after this pandemic, but I think let's take care of each other and hope for a different but better future. So anything, last words from Alan or Elon before we close the call?
No, just thank you so much. Again, I hope everybody out there is staying safe. And I think we, even though we're kind of under this pandemic here, we've made some great progress, in terms of especially with IHE, working with China Mobile. There's a lot of good things going ahead for NKN. So I'm really excited about what we have to offer.
Yeah, I also want to say that thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, hope everyone stay safe and take good care of yourself. Yeah, we are not although we are not affected, but still we hope this this pandemic thing to go away really fast and recover the normal life that we had before, and we hope the world can become better in all aspects.
Okay, with that, and thank you, and see you next time.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.